The first sound they heard was not a lullaby, it was chains. Before they learned to walk, they were already owned. Before they learned their own name, someone else had written it down in ink, in a ledger, under property. Imagine being born into a world where your life has a price, but no value, where your mother holds you tightly, not just because she loves you, but because she doesn't know how long she'll be allowed to. Imagine growing up, knowing that at any moment, a stranger could decide you are worth more somewhere else. And just like that, you are taken. No goodbye, no explanation, just distance. This was the reality for millions of children born into slavery. They did not cross the ocean in chains. They were born into them. They never saw Africa, never knew freedom, never experienced a world that did not call them property. And yet, they survived. They loved. They dreamed in secret. They whispered hope into the ears of their own children. But survival came at a cost, because when a child is born into captivity, it doesn't just shape their life, it shapes generations. It shapes how families love, how they fear, how they protect, how they grieve. Somewhere today, there are people walking this earth whose strength was built on the tears of children who never got to be children. This is their story. The children born in chains. Imagine being born and already belonging to someone before you can walk, before you can speak your first word, before you even understand what freedom means. Your name is written in a ledger. Your future is already sold. Your life has already been decided. You did not choose your chains. You inherited them. This is the story we don't talk about enough. Not just the men and women who were captured, but the children born into slavery, the generations who never saw Africa, never knew freedom, and never had the chance to choose who they would become. This is the story of the children born into chains. Under slavery in the Americas, a child's status followed the mother. If she was enslaved, the child was enslaved. This principle was written into law in colonies like Virginia in the 1600s. It guaranteed that slavery would reproduce itself. A plantation owner did not just own labor, he owned future generations. A baby born on a plantation was not seen as a child first. They were seen as an asset, an investment, an increase in wealth. Mothers knew this. Imagine holding your newborn child, feeling love, fear, hope, and also knowing that one day someone could sell them away. For enslaved mothers, joy and grief lived in the same heartbeat. There was no real childhood. By the age of 5 or 6, many enslaved children were already assigned small tasks: carrying water, watching younger children, cleaning yards. By 10 or 12, they were working full days in fields or inside plantation homes. Play existed because children find ways to play anywhere, but it was fragile, interrupted, watched, punished. Education was forbidden in many slaveholding societies. In parts of the United States, it was illegal to teach an enslaved child to read, because literacy meant awareness, and awareness threatened control. So generations grew up denied formal knowledge, not because they lacked intelligence, but because knowledge was seen as dangerous. And yet, they learned anyway. They learned through stories whispered at night, through songs, through memory. One of the cruelest realities was separation. Children were sold, sometimes at age 8, sometimes younger. Imagine being old enough to remember your mother's voice, but not old enough to stop them from pulling you away. Slave auctions did not pause for tears. Families were divided to settle debts, to maximize profit, to punish resistance. A child could be sent hundreds of miles away, never to see their parents again. Some historians estimate that in the United States alone, hundreds of thousands of children were forcibly separated from at least one parent before the end of slavery. And what does that do to a generation? It creates a deep, inherited fear of loss. It teaches children that love is fragile, that safety can disappear overnight. The children born into chains did not just inherit legal status, they inherited trauma. A mother who had been beaten might raise her child with fierce protectiveness or with fear shaped by survival. A father who had seen his siblings sold might struggle to express attachment, knowing it could be ripped away. Trauma does not disappear when slavery ends. It lingers in stress responses, in family patterns, in silence. Modern researchers studying generational trauma suggest that extreme stress can leave biological and psychological imprints passed down through families. Slavery lasted centuries. That is, centuries of accumulated pain embedded in bloodlines. And yet, within that trauma, there was also strength, because survival is its own inheritance. Even in captivity, enslaved parents fought to give their children something slavery could not take: identity. They told stories of Africa, even if they had never seen it themselves. They created new cultural traditions, blending memory and adaptation. Spirituals carried hidden messages of hope. Names were chosen carefully, sometimes biblical, sometimes symbolic, sometimes quietly defiant. In places like Haiti, children born into slavery would one day rise up in revolution during the Haitian Revolution and overthrow the system that enslaved them. The children born into chains became the generation that demanded freedom. They were not passive victims. They were survivors, learning, watching, waiting. When slavery ended in places like the United States in 1865, freedom did not erase the damage. Formerly enslaved children, now young adults, had to build lives from nothing. No land, no inherited wealth, no formal education. But they built families. They searched for lost relatives using newspaper ads and word of mouth, looking for my mother, searching for my brother. Imagine freedom beginning with a search, and still, they persisted. They built churches, schools, communities. They created the foundation for generations that would follow. The children born into chains never chose their circumstances, but they chose to survive. They chose to love in a system designed to break love. They chose to hope in a system built on despair. They chose to raise children who would one day walk in freedom. If you are alive today and descended from them, you are the dream they were never allowed to have. You are the future they could not see. Slavery tried to define them as property. History now remembers them as something else: foundations. Because from their suffering came resilience. From their tears came generations. And from their chains came us.